Welcome to Criminal Conversations, where your hosts will take you through some of the most fascinating crime stories in under 20 minutes. If you're looking for a quick and engaging deep dive into the world of true crime, you've come to the right place.
Welcome back to Criminal Conversations, the show where we dig into some of history's most intriguing crimes. I'm Jack, and with me as always is the amazing Emma.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Today, we're heading back to 1990s Boston, to a case that still has the art world scratching its head, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist.
Oh, yeah, a story full of twists, turns, and, more dead ends than you can shake a stick at.
So picture this. St. Patrick's Day weekend, Boston is alive, everyone's out celebrating, and right there in the middle of it all is the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Now, this wasn't your average museum. This was Isabella Stewart Gardner's baby.
She envisioned this Venetian-style palace, a real haven for art lovers, bringing a little slice of Europe to Boston. She even shipped architectural elements from Europe to make this immersive experience. And her will stipulated that the collection had to remain unchanged, making the museum itself a living testament to her vision.
Wow, a real passion project. But sadly, on March 18th, 1990, that vision was shattered. In the dead of night, thieves made off with 13 pieces. Rembrandts of Vermeer, Degas sketches, you name it. Even an ancient Chinese guy.
A really strange selection, if you ask me. They completely bypassed masterpieces by Michelangelo and Raphael. They went for this oddball mix. It's almost as if they had a very specific buyer in mind. Or, maybe they were working off a list from someone who didn't really know that much about art, to be honest.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Were they working for a collector? Or is this just some, money-hungry scheme orchestrated by someone who only saw dollar signs and not, the real artistic value?
Exactly.
Either way, the estimated value of the stolen artwork was a whopping $500 million back then.
Can you imagine what it would be worth today?
Oh, I don't even want to think about it. And get this, 34 years later, it remains the single biggest unsolved art heist in history.
And those empty frames, they still hang on the museum walls. A stark reminder of the theft, but also a powerful testament to Isabella's wishes. It's almost like a ghostly presence in those galleries.
Definitely gives me chills just thinking about it. So let's rewind to that fateful night. Now, it's important to note that the museum's security wasn't exactly Fort Knox. They had motion detectors, sure, but those were mostly focused on the exterior. Inside, no cameras whatsoever.
And the guards' only way to contact the police?
Go on.
Just a single button at the security desk. Not exactly the most robust system, especially considering it was a holiday weekend.
Talk about a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Now, here come our thieves. Just after midnight, two men, dressed as Boston cops no less, are spotted hanging around the museum's side entrance. Witnesses didn't think anything of it. Cops, St. Patrick's Day, it all seemed normal.
If only they knew they were witnessing the beginning of this art heist thriller, right?
Right. Inside the museum, two security guards, Rick Abath and Randy Hestand, are starting their shift. For Hestand, it was his first night on the job. Talk about trial by fire.
Definitely not the initiation he was expecting.
Yeah, poor guy. So around 1 below a.m., fire alarms start going off in a few different rooms. Abath goes to check it out, but finds nothing.
It's almost like a test run, don't you think, to see how the guards would react in a stressful situation?
A little reconnaissance? Maybe.
Possibly.
Now, this is where things get a little strange. Abath disables the alarm, continues his rounds, and then, for reasons unknown, opens the side door just for a moment before closing it again.
Yeah, that's a head-scratcher. A seemingly small action that's fueled endless speculation over the years. Was it a signal to those cops outside? Or just a nervous rookie mistake? It's a tiny detail that's kept investigators up at night for years.
20 minutes later, those same cops ring the buzzer. Abath sees them on the CCTV and buzzes them in. Remember, there wasn't an actual disturbance reported, so, why open the door?
They really use the chaos of the holiday to their advantage. It's classic social engineering, playing on people's expectations and trust.
And Abath, maybe eager to prove himself on his first night, breaks protocol and lets them in. At 1:24 a.m., the heist officially begins.
From that moment on, everything unfolds with chilling precision. The thieves overpower the guards almost immediately, using handcuffs and duct tape to restrain them. The way they moved, how they knew the layout, it screams meticulous planning. They knew exactly what they were doing.
No doubt about it. They take the guards down to the basement, cuff them to pipes and a workbench. They even went as far as to get their home addresses and threaten their families. A pretty chilling tactic to ensure the guard's silence.
Absolutely ruthless.
At 1:35 a.m., with the guard secured and 81 minutes until the museum's alarm system would automatically alert the police, these thieves got to work.
And here's where the mystery really starts to unravel. The motion detectors paint an incomplete picture. They enter the Dutch room on the second floor, but there's this 13-minute gap before any movement is registered.
What were they doing during that time? I mean, were they just soaking it all in, maybe doing a final check? We can only speculate.
Right.
But when they finally did get to work, it was brutal.
Absolutely. They smashed a sensor near one of the artworks. They knew exactly where it was. They ripped Rembrandts off the walls, shattering those beautiful glass frames. The sheer force they used. The total disregard for the art itself. It's baffling.
Yeah. One Rembrandt, a self-portrait, was even pulled off the wall and then just left there.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. They probably realized it was way too big and bulky to carry and went with a smaller etching of the same subject instead.
Makes sense. And then there's that guy, that ancient Chinese beaker. I mean,
Yeah.
why take that? Was it on their list? Or did something about it just catch their eye?
It's another piece of the puzzle that just doesn't seem to fit. It adds to the bizarre collection of stolen items. It's fueled endless debates about their motives and knowledge of art. Were they simply following orders? Or were they, calling some of the shots themselves?
It's a mystery for sure. So let's continue to follow these thieves as they move through the museum.
Next stop, the Short Gallery, just across the courtyard. They nabbed Manet's Ches Tortoni, 5 Degas sketches, and then, get this, a bronze eagle finial. Like the thing on top of a flagpole. From a Napoleonic flag, no less.
It's okay. Degas sketches, I get it. Those are valuable.
Yeah.
But a flagpole topper. It's like they were playing art heist bingo with the weirdest card ever.
Right. And here's another detail. Before leaving, they actually went back down to the basement to check on the guards.
Wait, really?
Yeah, can you imagine the audacity? It's like, hey guys, everything okay down here? Just making sure you're comfy while we make off with $500 million worth of art.
I mean, it's almost funny if it weren't so creepy, of course.
Exactly. Then they head to the security director's office, swipe the videotapes, but they leave behind the hard drive. The one with all the same information.
Another head scratcher.
Yeah.
So were they just sloppy? Or did they not know about the backup?
It's a detail that's been debated endlessly. And get this, they even left the ornate frame from Ches Tortoni on the security director's desk, like a calling card or something.
A little souvenir.
Maybe.
At 2:45 a.m., exactly 81 minutes after buzzing in, they were gone. Poof, vanished into the night. 13 priceless artworks gone without a trace. But of course, the story doesn't end there, does it?
Not even close. The investigation that followed was massive. I mean, we're talking a deep dive into the underbelly of Boston. A real who's who of the city's criminal underworld.
Lead me down the rabbit hole. Let's start with Ricky Bath, our security guard, the one who opened the side door.
Right, him. Turns out there's security footage from the night before the heist that shows him letting some unidentified man into the museum after hours. And when questioned, Bath said he couldn't remember who it was.
Convenient.
Isn't it? And get this. Some of the former security guards actually identified the man in the video as the museum's deputy security chief.
Whoa. Okay, so maybe Bath just panicked, made some bad decisions under pressure. But was he in on it? Did he knowingly help these guys? Or was he, forced to cooperate?
He's always insisted that he had nothing to do with it. He even passed multiple lie detector tests, but those 13 minutes of unaccounted for time in the Dutch room, it raises some eyebrows.
I'd say.
Next up, we have Brian McDevitt. Con man, art thief. Back in '81, he tried to pull off a heist using, get this, handcuffs, duct tape, and a FedEx disguise.
Sound familiar?
Right. The FBI definitely noticed some similarities to the Gardner case, and McDevitt even kind of fit the description of one of the thieves, the taller one. And he had this thing about flags.
Maybe that explains the finial?
Maybe. And here's the kicker. The guy actually tried to sell a movie about the Gardner heist. Talk about trying to capitalize on a crime.
Unbelievable.
They interviewed him, of course, but McDevitt denied any involvement and refused to take a polygraph. His fingerprints didn't match anything at the scene, and he died back in 2004. So whatever secrets he had, he took them to the grave.
Okay, so from con man, we move on to a full-fledged art thief, Miles Connor. This guy had already stolen a Rembrandt from Boston's Museum of Fine Arts back in '75. And it was no secret that he had his eye on the Gardner.
That's right. And Connor had this connection with a forger named William Youngworth, who claimed to actually have one of the stolen Gardner paintings. Turned out to be a fake, though.
So an art thief and a forger. Sounds like they were running some kind of art world black market operation.
Possibly. Youngworth also had ties to the mob, specifically Bobby Donati.
Okay, now things are getting interesting. Tell me more about this Donati character.
Well, Donati was part of a crew run by Carmelo Merlino. Merlino was an underboss in the Patriarcha crime family, and they were running this cocaine ring out of TRC Auto Electric. It was an auto repair shop, but it was just a front for their criminal activities.
Hiding in plain sight. Classic.
Exactly. Now, remember those fake cops we talked about? Well, the FBI believes they were George Rice and Lenny DiMuzio, and both of them had ties to, you guessed it, TRC Auto Electric.
So this auto shop was basically heist central.
Pretty much. Sadly, Rice overdosed not long after the heist. They found his body, and guess who found him? Merlino himself. And then DiMuzio disappeared about a year later. They eventually found his body in the trunk of a car.
Man, what a way to go. It's a grim reminder of just how dangerous that world can be.
Absolutely. Now let's get back to Donati. The theory is that he wanted to orchestrate this big, splashy heist to try and free his boss, Vinnie Ferrara, who was in prison at the time.
So the idea was to pull off something huge, get some leverage, and then negotiate Ferrara's release.
That's the theory.
Bold strategy, and I'm sure dangerous even for a mobster.
No doubt. And the connections don't stop there. Donati was tight with a guy named Robert Guarente. And in 2010, Guarente's widow told the FBI that her husband had actually had some of the stolen paintings.
Wait, she knew about this the whole time. Why come forward after he's gone?
Well, according to her, when Guarente got sick, he gave the paintings to Robert Gentile, another mobster with ties to the Patriarchus. Gentile, of course, denied knowing anything, but when the FBI searched his property, they found a hidden ditch in his backyard shed.
A hidden ditch. That sounds promising.
It was empty. But they did find something interesting, a copy of the Boston Herald from March 1990, you know, the one reporting the theft, and a list with all the stolen artwork on it. It even had their estimated black market values.
Okay, that's pretty suspicious, even for a mobster.
Definitely. They couldn't link him directly to the heist, but they did end up indicting him on drug charges. And when they gave Gentile a polygraph about the art, the results suggested he wasn't being truthful.
So another dead end.
Pretty much.
Yep.
He ended up serving 30 months for those drug charges, maintaining his innocence the whole time. But there's another wrinkle in this story. Remember William Youngworth, the forger? He claimed that Miles Connor, the Rembrandt thief from '75, was involved in the Gardner heist. And part of the reason, he said, was to try and get his friend David Houghton out of prison.
Hold on. So they stole $500 million worth of art to spring a friend from jail. That's some serious loyalty.
That's what Youngworth said. He claimed that Connor went to see Houghton in prison before the heist, asking for advice on how to break into the Gardner. And after the heist, Connor apparently told Houghton, "We did it."
So a confession by proxy.
Basically. Youngworth also said Connor told him 5 guys were involved, with Donati as the one in charge of moving the artwork. It's a tangled web, with everyone pointing fingers, but it does give you a sense of just how complicated this whole case is.
So where does all this leave us? We've got suspects galore, a trail of dead ends, and the artwork is still missing. I mean, is there any hope that those masterpieces will ever be recovered?
It's the question that's been on everyone's mind for, gosh, over 3 decades now. But even with all these cold trails, the FBI actually believes they identified the thieves. Yeah. Everything seems to point back to Rice and DiMuzio. You know, those 2 fake cops connected to Merlino's crew at TRC Auto Electric. But here's the thing. They still haven't figured out where their artwork is.
So it's like the paintings just vanished, poof, gone.
Yeah.
But you know, art theft isn't like other crimes. Those stolen pieces can't just disappear forever, right? They're too valuable, too recognizable.
Exactly. It's like a ticking time bomb. Whoever has those paintings, the original thieves, some random buyer, whoever, they're always looking over their shoulder. And the FBI hasn't given up. Plus, you know, that $10 million reward. That's a pretty powerful motivator for someone to spill the beans.
For sure. And, you know, the museum still has those empty frames on display. It's a poignant reminder of what was lost, but it's also a symbol of hope that maybe, someday, the paintings will be returned. But honestly, after all this time, where could they be?
Well, there are a few theories floating around out there. Some folks think that Donati stashed the artwork somewhere before he died, maybe somewhere in Boston, you know, close to home. Others suspect that Gentile might have known more than he let on, despite his denials, of course.
And then there's always the theory that the paintings were, you know, shipped overseas, hidden away in some private collection. far from the FBI's reach.
Right. It's like a global treasure hunt. And every now and then, some new lead pops up, sending investigators off on a wild goose chase.
It's like a real-life Da Vinci Code, but with way higher stakes.
Exactly. One of the more recent developments was back in 2017. The FBI searched a property in Maine that had connections to a former mobster. They even brought in, like, ground-penetrating radar and everything. But no dice. Another dead end.
So frustrating. So the case is still open. Artwork's still missing. It's definitely a tough one, but maybe time will do its thing. Memories fade, people's loyalties change, and who knows, maybe someone somewhere will remember something, some little detail that could crack this whole thing wide open.
And that's where you, our listeners, come in. You might be thinking, what could I possibly know about an art heist that happened over 30 years ago? But you never know, right? Maybe you remember something, like a conversation you overheard back then, or a news clipping, even just some crazy rumor that you didn't think twice about.
Or maybe you saw a painting somewhere that looked familiar, like at an antique shop or a flea market, maybe even in someone's house. You just never know. Don't underestimate the power of a little detail.
Exactly. The statute of limitations on the actual theft has expired, but possessing or selling that stolen artwork, that's still very much a crime. And with a $10 million reward on the table, well, let's just say the incentive to come forward has never been higher.
So if you know anything, if you remember anything, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, do the right thing. Reach out to the FBI or the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. You could be the one to finally bring these masterpieces home.
And if you're ever in Boston, you should really visit the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Stand in front of those empty frames and just imagine the beauty that was stolen. It's a powerful reminder of just how fragile art is, but also how enduring the allure of a mystery like this can be. It's a story that continues to captivate people around the world.
Definitely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled, your ears open, and remember, in the world of art and crime, the most valuable things are often the ones that are missing. Thanks for joining us on Criminal Conversations.
Thanks for listening to Criminal Conversations. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to rate and review. It makes a huge difference and really helps us out. All of the sources used for today's episode can be found in the show notes. Join us every Monday and Thursday for a new story and another criminal conversation.